On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, for great program delivery, figure out the outcomes you want, and then
your outputs at the project level need to be tied back to these outcomes. And if you don't, then you need to stop doing those projects or change them.
Former Labor CIO Gundeep Ahluwalia on FedGov Today in just a moment. First, though, the end of the shutdown when it comes will mean agencies can start contracting at full speed again. But that may take some time after the longest federal government shutdown in history. Mike Darios, the outgoing Deputy Assistant Secretary for Acquisition at the State Department, will tell you what to expect on the new FedGov Today TV. You can watch the show on the FedGov Today YouTube channel anytime you want, and it's available on our website at fedgovtoday.com. The shutdown may have a silver lining for organizations that are working on transformation efforts across government. Some leaders say the restart after the shutdown might be a great opportunity to turbocharge rebuilding or modernization efforts. Gundeep Ahluwalia is Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer at New Axis Innovations. He's former Chief Information Officer at the Department of Labor. Gundeep, welcome. It's great to talk to you again. Do you see that opportunity potentially for restart efforts when the shutdown ends to do something different, not just pick back up with what people were doing before the shutdown? Welcome, Gundeep.
It is always a pleasure to see you, Francis. Thank you for having me. It is as disruptive as these shutdowns can be, right? I always am a glass half full kind of person, so I try to see opportunities where they exist, right? I think the one thing that I always tell people is as you take a pause, this is a moment to look at the forest from the trees a little bit. You can step back, the activity dies down a little bit, and you look at your projects and go, okay, what are the things that I was unable to plan or take a strategic view, longer term view on my particular project. I also try and say that, okay, we've done some deconstruction over the last few months, right, or a year. I think it is great now to look at how will I construct my project in a manner that is built right, built for purpose, built for mission outcomes, built for the future, right, and this is the time that I would almost do a bit of a stock taking, right? We often get very entangled in outputs, right? Okay, here is the milestone, here is the next thing, here's the next deployment coming, etc. This is the time to look at all those outputs and connect them to outcomes, right? Am I still driving towards the right outcome or not? Again, I do not want to trivialize the government shutdown. It is deeply unsettling for federal employees as well as vendors and partners as well. But if you have some time, I would spend it this way so that when you come out, you are ahead.
The discussion about outcomes is striking to me, Gundeep, because I'm going to guess 3 or 4 of the people that I've had on the show in the last couple of weeks who are like you, former government leaders who are now on the outside looking in, have used that exact word to describe what the people who are still in should focus on. And it strikes me, I've never been through a government shutdown on the inside. I've never worked in government. I've been on this side of it the whole time. But it strikes me it would be very tempting when restarting again to focus on all tactical stuff and not focus as much as maybe you and others have suggested on what it is that we actually have to deliver to the citizen.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think we as a as a nation, we have to improve our citizen services, right? Whether it is reducing fraud, waste and abuse and unemployment, or it is getting our veterans back to employment and integration into civil society when they come back into American economy, or it is about getting faster permits so that we can build faster than many of the other developing nations are. These are all things that we can agree on. Right now, when you nail down, okay, I am going to implement the next system or modernize my system, how do I make that happen? right? What outputs, what milestones do I need to do on my fraud, waste, and abuse, unemployment, or reintegration of veterans when they come back, right? These are all questions that need to be broken down. And then your outputs on at the project level need to be tied back to these outcomes. And if you don't, then you need to stop doing those projects or change them, right? And I think that is the hardest part sometimes we have. And in this environment, that is the beauty of the moment, as in you have the opportunity to recalibrate your outputs so that they are better connected to outcomes. Again, don't want to trivialize. I don't want any shutdowns. This should be done on a continuous basis. But I also feel like post Doge, we have an opportunity to make that connection better so that we are efficient and are resulting in better citizen services.
Yeah, and speaking of opportunity, it seems that this administration in particular, more than maybe any other I've ever covered, there's more of an opportunity to go to somebody and say, here's, for a career person, to go to somebody and say, here's something that we're doing that we don't need to do anymore, and get some air cover to be able to stop doing that, because there seems to be a great appetite to stop doing things that don't appear to be necessary.
Yeah, and that is where I say you can recalibrate your project outputs, right? You can talk to, and I have encouraged at New Access we have done portfolio reviews internally, and we are proactively going out to our customers and saying like, hey, here is how we can generate more value here. Even the original statement of work said X, now we can go Y. And these are kind of opportunities that I encourage all feds, all vendors to proactively engage, right? I mean, if you cannot tie your project back to a better outcome for the citizens, right, or your program goals, then you need to revisit that, right? And now is the time. And I think there is an appetite for it, right? Especially with fewer people in the government and the contract base. You have to become more efficient. You're forced to become more efficient in a way, right? So while government shutdowns are disruptive, I think it's an opportunity right now to look at it in a different manner and engage with the feds, right? As they come back from these furloughs, hopefully soon. They give them ideas, test their ideas, right, and collaboratively come up with a recalibration of your engagement and your project.
So let's say an organization takes your advice and thinks about how to recalibrate, looks at doing things differently, and so on. What's your sense of what, for an example, a CIO organization looks like in the federal government a year from now or 2 years from now? How does it look different than it does today to deliver on the kind of vision that you just described, Gundeep? And what changes should that leader or that leadership team start to think about today in order to get to that year out or 2 year out different organization structure? And I'm not just talking about org chart, but about how the organization gets work done, about who might do that work, about work that might need to happen at that time that's not happening today, all of that.
Yeah. So I think as we go about in any organization, right, and in any IT organization in the government, we need to learn and build our teams that are reliant on bringing in specialized knowledge as needed to drive the outcomes that we need, right? So I think we have to be nimble, we have to be flexible, we have to be smarter about these things. We also need to have a little bit of self-awareness, right? You cannot, because sometimes what we do in the government is we bring in an expert on AI and then put a person who has never done AI in their life in charge of that contract or a COR or things of that nature. That's almost like telling a surgeon that your surgery will be cross-checked by an EMT, right? I mean, or a blacksmith, right? I mean, it just doesn't work. So I would encourage the CIOs to reconfigure their employees, and also realize that they will be reliant more on contract staff, on specialized staff, than they ever have in the past, right? So you need to reconfigure the way you think in your organization, build a cultural change. The other thing I will also say is traditionally IT organizations have been, hey, this is IT work, I'm going to do it, right? To just get out of my way kind of thing. And that just doesn't work. And that's why customer experience, co-creating with program offices, empowering the program offices to drag and drop and do something themselves rather than churn out another project which you need IT staff for. I think citizen development programs, bringing programs closer to co-create, changing the mindset of your oversight staff in the IT arena, and most importantly, engaging with the vendors, right? Because the vendors are going to bring in the knowledge and the capacity to make these outcomes a reality. And that's how you need to drive this.
It's really terrific to talk to you as always, my friend. I appreciate the chance to catch up.
It's always good to catch up with you, Francis. Thank you.
You can read more on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. The FedGov Today podcast is back tomorrow. The landscape will look different for contractors, not just for federal employees when the shutdown ends. Former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Logistics and Materiel Readiness, David Berteau, will tell you what it might look like on tomorrow's FedGov Today podcast. If you don't want to miss that, you can follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on the FedGov Today YouTube channel, or on demand at fedgovtoday.com. I'm Francis Rose. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.